You've had a feeling about your truck for a while now, that it's worth more than people say, that the offers you've been getting don't line up with what's actually sitting out there, that every time somebody quotes you a number, they're looking at the year on the title and not much else. You're not imagining it, and I can show you the numbers. Right now there's a 2006 Silverado 1500 listed for sale. The 4.8, the small engine, the one nobody bragged about, two-wheel drive, 5-speed manual, 48,000 miles, a work truck, plain as they come. They're asking $19,000. And there are two 1999 Silverados listed today, same model year, both LS trucks. One's asking $5,800, the other's asking $23,500. 4 times the money. Same year, same truck on paper. Now, those are asking prices. What a seller wants, not what a buyer paid. But that's the point. Two men looked at trucks from the same year and put them in completely different parts of the market, and neither one thinks he's crazy. So what moves a truck from one end of that spread to the other? 4 things. And one of them has nothing to do with your engine, your mileage, your rust, or your options. I'll get to that one last, because it might be the biggest. Start with what got built. Everything about that $19,000 truck says cheap. Base engine. No 4-wheel drive. A manual transmission nobody wanted by 2006. Roll onto a dealer lot with that truck in 2015, and they'd have looked at you like you were joking. And that's exactly why it's worth what it's worth. The loaded trucks sold in volume. Everybody optioned them up. The plain ones with the odd combination didn't. 20 years later, the loaded one is easy to find and the plain one isn't. But be careful with that, because scarce and valuable aren't the same word. Plenty of unusual configurations are unusual because nobody wanted them, and nobody wants them now either. Rarity only does work when somebody's actually hunting the thing that's rare. That manual 4.8 works because there are men out there right now specifically looking for a simple truck they can shift themselves. Rare and wanted, that's the combination. So stop asking whether your truck is nice. Ask whether it's common, and whether the way it's uncommon is a way anybody cares about. Regular cab instead of crew, base engine instead of the big one, a manual, a work trim. It runs the other direction too. 20 years ago the crew cab was the good one, because it hauled the family. Today, when a man buys one of these because he wants it rather than needs it, he wants the shape that looks like a pickup. Regular cabs and short beds carry a premium now that they never carried when these were work trucks. So go read the sticker inside your glove box door, not the badge on the fender. Those 3 character codes are the closest thing your truck has to a birth certificate. It won't tell you what's still installed after 20-odd years, and it says nothing about condition, but it tells you exactly what left the factory, and that's where any honest conversation about your truck starts. Now, if you're sitting there with a 5.3 extended cab automatic, which is a great many of you, don't check out on me. That's the most common way these trucks came, and it's also the factor you had the least control over. I've watched ordinary configurations sell strong because everything else about the truck was right, and I've watched unusual ones sit because nothing else was. Configuration gets you in the door, it doesn't finish the job. Second, how it lived, and rust matters more than the odometer. Everybody reaches for mileage first. It's the easy number. But here's what a buyer paying real money actually looks at, and I want you to hear it before you check your own odometer and count yourself out. On a truck this old, structure and body condition can outweigh an impressive number on the dash. Rust is what takes these trucks out of the game. Engines get rebuilt, transmissions get replaced, those are jobs. But when the frame rails and the brake lines and the cab corners are far enough gone, you're into work that costs more than the truck brings. And that's true no matter what the odometer says. So a 200,000-mile truck with a solid frame can absolutely place higher than a lower-mile truck that's flaking underneath. Not always, but it happens, and the market knows it. Mileage still counts, and I won't pretend otherwise. That 1999 asking 23.5 has 79,000 on it, and that's genuinely unusual for a truck that age. But a low number by itself doesn't prove the truck was stored inside, or kept out of the salt, or looked after. It proves it was driven less. Everything else has to be established by looking. So go look. Frame rails, brake lines, cab corners, rockers. Good light, 10 minutes. And be honest with yourself about the answer. Is your frame genuinely clean, or clean for around here. A buyer from a dry state will know the difference. Which brings up the one thing on this list you actually controlled. Third, how original it still is. The buyers paying the top numbers generally want factory. Original paint, original wheels, stock ride height, original interior, engine and transmission either untouched or documented. But let me put that more precisely than people usually do, because modifications kill value isn't quite true. Some period correct or well done changes suit certain buyers fine. The accurate version is this: the further a truck sits from factory, the more its value depends on finding the one buyer who wants those exact changes. A stock truck can be sold to anybody looking for that truck. A lifted one on aftermarket wheels can be sold to the man who wanted precisely that lift and those wheels. Smaller pool. That's the cost, and sometimes it's worth paying. What matters more than whether you modified it is whether it can go back. A wheel swap is reversible. A bolt-on exhaust is reversible. A cut fender or a hacked-up harness is a different conversation, which is why the factory takeoffs in your garage matter more than you'd think. The stock wheels in the corner, the original seats, the exhaust you pulled off years ago. Having them doesn't automatically make the truck worth more, but it gives a future buyer options he wouldn't otherwise have, and it backs up the claim that the truck is what you say it is. Go look in your shed before you haul that pile off. It isn't clutter, it's part of the truck. And be honest about the difference between original and good. A truck can be completely original and badly deteriorated. It can be beautifully restored and not original at all. Those are separate questions, and mixing them up is how a man talks himself into a number that isn't there. Because here's the thing, you could have all three of those right. Clean, original, plain, in exactly the right way, and still get offered scrap money. Because of the fourth one. Fourth, who's actually looking at it? This is the one almost nobody talks about, and it may be the biggest lever of all. List it locally and you get local buyers. Men after cheap transportation, comparing your truck to every beater within 30 miles, negotiating from there. That's not them being cheap, that's who's in that room. But there's another room, and here's the evidence it exists. Classic.com, the site that tracks classic car markets, now lists 1999 through 2007 Silverados as a category. That doesn't mean every one of these is a collectible. Most aren't, and I'd be lying if I told you otherwise. What it means is that a segment of enthusiast buyers is now watching certain examples closely enough that somebody built a page for it. There's also a published buyer's guide devoted to authenticating a Silverado SS through its option codes and paperwork, separating genuine factory trucks from ordinary ones with the cladding added. Most of you don't own an SS, but that's the lesson anyway. When buyers start caring what the build sheet says, documentation stops being paperwork and starts being proof. Here's the limit though. A better audience gets the right truck properly considered. It can't manufacture rarity or condition that isn't there. Putting an ordinary truck in front of enthusiast buyers doesn't make it an enthusiast truck. It just means more people say no. If you ever do sell, the mistake is defaulting to the first place you'd think of, and doing it before you've gathered your paperwork. Records, the window sticker if you still have it, the option codes. Documentation doesn't add value by itself. What it does is take the guesswork out, and that's what lets a serious buyer pay the higher number without worrying he's being taken. Here's where all four land. What got built, how it lived, how original it is, who's looking at it. And the strong numbers don't come from one of them. They come from several stacking. One unusual option doesn't override serious rust. Low mileage doesn't override a history nobody can account for. Originality doesn't create demand for a configuration nobody wants. And the right audience can't rescue a poor example. Most Silverados aren't $23,000 trucks, and I won't stand here and tell you otherwise. Most are good, honest driver market trucks, and that's a real number with nothing to apologize for. But the gap is genuine, it isn't random, and a lot of men are sitting further up it than anybody's bothered to tell them. And whether you ever sell or not, here's what's worth doing this weekend. Photograph that RPO sticker before it fades any further. Get under the truck with a light and document what the frame actually looks like. Put your maintenance records in one place. Find the factory parts you took off and set them aside. Write down what's been changed and when. That's an afternoon. And it's worth doing on a truck you plan to keep forever. Because the day something happens to it, somebody else is going to have to answer all those questions without you. Now notice what those 4 things really amount to. Keep it stock. Keep it out of the salt. Keep the paperwork. That's not investment strategy. That's just taking care of your truck. You weren't protecting an asset. You were looking after something you owned. But looking after it is exactly what preserved your choices, and it protected value that neglect would have thrown away. That's not a windfall. That's just what care is worth, showing up 20 years later. Now I want to hear from you. Give me your year, your mileage, your cab and bed, your engine, and whether it's 2 or 4-wheel drive, plus the lowest offer anybody's ever made on it. The more of that you include, the more useful it is for the next man reading, because he can actually compare his truck to yours. If your Silverado's still earning its keep, hit subscribe.